Good evening. How are you? We're doing a sit and talk because there are storms raging around outside, thunder and lightning and rain and so forth. And it's pleasurable and exciting, but it doesn't facilitate a contemplative journey that you and I are taking together. The journey today is into an old story, but there are always disclosures when it comes to Mr. Trump. In this case, it's about how he handles the corrupting influence of deals around the world. It is a problem that we saw in his first administration in 2016 and afterwards, how he reassured everybody that he was not mixing the office in such a way that it compromised him to perform because he was not cheating and taking advantage because his sons were running things. And here we are again, and apparently under the cloak of us all paying attention to Elon Musk, we have not found out what else was going on. And now we have. The New York Times has a powerful story today, which is similar to editorials that the editorial board wrote back in 2016 and 2017. And it goes like this. Forgive me for looking down, but some of this just has to be precise. The Times says a contest of sorts has played out across Europe, the United States, and the Middle East in recent days as President Trump's two older sons have pursued a blitz of family money-making ventures capitalizing on their father's name and power, each seemingly trying to outdo the other. Now, it doesn't take an oversensitive, ethical person to say, what is his loyalty to? Is it to the post that he took, or is it to himself? Well, with some people, that might be a difficult question, but not with Trump. We know he always chooses himself first. He chooses himself over friends. He chooses himself over country. He chooses himself over bogus religious posturing, you name it. He is never genuine in the sense of honest, forthcoming, and working consistent with his oath. Now, let me just survey a couple of things. What I read you was the lead to the New York Times story. And it was updated this morning, and it may have been updated since. Among the places that the sons are looking for business opportunities, a luxury hotel in Dubai, a second high-end residential tower in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, 2 cryptocurrency ventures based in the United States, a new golf course and villa complex in Qatar, a new private club in Washington, remember the hotel that used to serve in this purpose, and in many of these cases, these new deals have been promoted over the last week, and they will personally benefit not only Eric and Donald Trump Jr., but also President Trump himself. Now, if there was a definition for what he's doing, we could find it in the Constitution, and we can. The position we should be taking is Trump should be disavowing and disassociating himself from the extensive and complex personal holdings around the world. He has shown no indication to do that. When he took the oath of office, he said that he was going to uphold, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And you may remember in recent days, he says, I don't know what I did, Well, he did it twice. He did it in 2017, and that is taken the oath. And he took the oath again. And some say, did he put his hand on this, that, or the other thing? He could have put it on a bunch of recipes or not at all. He read the oath aloud, he took the oath, and if he failed to do that, then he has no basis to be the president. So that's a non-issue. So when you hear this from the right-wing nuts out there, just tell them nonsense. Did you see it? People around the world saw it, so we know it. There is a thing called the Emoluments Clause, Emoluments. And what it provides in Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, that no person holding any office of profit or trust shall, without the consent of Congress, accept any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. As you saw, some of these things are involving getting permits and so forth from foreign countries. Or implicitly, it wasn't it wasn't said precisely that way when I said it a few moments ago. So we have him taking an oath that provides that he will not engage in emoluments, and of course he has. Now, back in 2016, after he was elected, the editorial board of the New York Times said they were upset with the profitability of Mr. Trump's investments in the Middle East, India, Turkey, the former Soviet republics, and elsewhere. And this is the objection, the constitutional one and the one stated by editorial boards, directly at odds with American foreign policy. He could act in that fashion. Is our American foreign policy to put golf courses in certain places, to have him buy Greenland? Is it to take over Canada? Is it to take over the Panama Canal? All of this without the concurrence of Congress and without it going to court, which I am sure it will when he makes his move, if he does. But what are we looking at? We're looking at a man that increasingly people are saying should not be president, never should have been president, got to be president lying about what he was going to do, and day by day we see what he said he was going to do failing, and now he is backtracking, clawing back from where he said he is and what he's all about. The Washington Post also chimed in and said the only ethical solution was to have Mr. Trump, this is back in 2017, selling his properties and putting the proceeds in a blind trust, but that didn't happen. Now, let me give you a somewhat broader picture of what else was going on. For example, let's take a look at Eric Trump, the president's middle son. He runs the Trump Organization, the main family business, which specializes in real estate. He also serves on the board of a holding company that oversees World Liberty Financial, the family's crypto firm, and recently joined forces with his older brother, Donald Trump Jr., to start a Bitcoin mining operation called American Bitcoin. Mr. Trump's financial disclosure report shows that he personally benefits financially from most of these ventures. Now, it's interesting that the investors in the dollar Trump meme coin are bidding to become the top 20 owners of the collectible coin and win a dinner with the president later this month. Now, a meme coin is a type of cryptocurrency based on an online joke or celebrity mascot that has no practical function other than speculation. But you see, these guys, you've seen how many people he destroys. I don't know yet if Elon Musk has been destroyed by his odd couple arrangement with the President of the United States, Donald Trump. But we'll see, because the fields are strewn with the victims of Trump loyalty that only goes in one direction. In the past 10 days, Donald Trump Jr. made stops in Hungary, Romania, Serbia, and Bulgaria on a paid speech tour he has called Trump Business Vision 2025. It also included visits with foreign government leaders and political candidates. During roughly the same time, Eric Trump was shuttling among Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and other Middle East spots to push the family's real estate and crypto plans. There's also a club that they're establishing, and only members can go there. It's called the Executive Branch, and it costs $500,000 a person. There will be no press there. You and I won't be there unless you are going to pay $500,000. And obviously, it creates a closed-door session, not electronically, but in reality and logistics, so that the powers in the administration can meet with the members of this organization and get what? Advantages. He's institutionalizing the conflict, the emoluments, the corruption, the bribery, the theft, the stealing. That's what he's doing. It's going to feature 2 bars, a lounge, a restaurant, and boardroom, recreating the role previously served by the lobby of the Trump International Hotel in Washington, where donors and acolytes of the president gathered until the family sold it off after Mr. Trump's first term. Now, let me give you some of the basis, the grounding in the Constitution and what the founders thought and why this is all important. And I'm sure I'm talking to the choir. I'm sure you understand this. And to the extent that anything I say is helpful in whatever argument or letter you're writing or so forth, don't hide your eyes, plagiarize, use it. I'm going to be quoting public documents and some things I wrote and so forth. So keep that in mind. This is Yes, it's information, but it's information to use in defense of our republic, to preserve our franchise, to have equal justice before law, and not to have people in the White House stealing our government, compromising it in every way for their own benefit. Now, the U.S. Constitution is not just concerned with separation of powers or federalism, but how we can contain corruption, or to state it more kindly, how we can preserve our nation's integrity. When we invoke the term corruption, we're talking about a lot more than bribery. We're seeking to assure a government undivided in its loyalty, with public servants focused on the nation and its people, to the exclusion of personal financial interest or advantages or any valuable consideration or emoluments that would divert the loyalty of any public official from what's best for the nation. Mason said at the outset of the Constitutional Convention, 1787, "If we do not provide against corruption, our government will soon be at an end." Now, we're seeing the government right now on not very sturdy legs. There are promises, and these are the kinds of hurtful promises, that container ships are going to stop coming here because they're not going to pay the tariffs. And it's already true in China that a whole bunch of containers are sitting there and they're not going because I guess there's always the possibility of common sense taking over fair play and so forth. And you can see how remote a concept that is when we think of Trump. So we have reason to be anxious. We also have to ask ourselves, what the hell does Congress do? This is their job. Tariffs are what they do. Taxes are what they do. It is written in the Constitution. That's what they're supposed to do. Baron Charles de Montesquieu wrote, "When that virtue ceases, ambition enters those hearts that can admit it, and avarice possesses them all." Could you find a more perfect picture to fit Trump than that expression? In the Federalist number 22, Alexander Hamilton, who was a monarchist basically and very conservative and the founder of the Federalists and hewed close to George Washington, he said, "One of the weak sides of republics, among their numerous advantages, is that they afford too easy an inlet to foreign corruption." What does that sound like? What do we think Putin is doing with Trump? And how will this dance that they do, they're not the best of actors. We have, and I've mentioned this before, so I apologize, but in the case of Ukraine, we have Trump gets the mineral rights as if to offset the expense of underwriting the war against Russia and therefore appearing to be at odds with Putin. But the agreement by which Zelensky gave those mineral rights does not have any clause that involves to ceasefire or arms provisions or anything of the sort. Very similar to the question of the bribery of Trump when he wanted to get at Biden running for office by investigating Hunter Biden, and he wanted Zelensky to conduct an investigation of that sort so that he could use that in the election against him, and he held back arms that Zelensky needed, wanting him to come forward with a promise to investigate. Now, the pressure became great, even among Republicans, and as the clock was running out to replenish these weapons, finally it was forced to happen. This is exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about Ukraine. Now, so Zelensky, maybe he feels constrained to say something good's going to happen until Trump betrays him again and makes peace with Putin, or finds some reason to be unhappy with Zelensky. So in other words, there are a lot of games going on, including the con that Trump's always working, always changing and so forth. Aristotle, who believed that the highest calling was politics, and he said this in his tome on politics, said, "Yes, the truth is that men's ambition and their desire to make money are among the most frequent causes of deliberate acts of injustice." Injustice. Can you think of a clause more appropriate to Trump than that? In In Federalist number 10, James Madison wrote, "We had to guard against the fact that, quote, enlightened statesmen will not always be at the helm." A truer word was never spoken when you can look at Exhibit A, Mr. Trump. "We have to guard against the immediate interest which one party may find in disregarding the rights of another or the good of the whole." That's powerful speaking. That's exactly what we have. And here's the frustrating thing. Whether it was Federalists or Jeffersonians, there was an agreement as to what tools to use to set this ship right going forward. And the fears that they had were real, and they knew about it from the history and indeed of their present times. And these men were all readers and students of the political philosophy of the time, which was a time of revolution for many years after that, between the agricultural occupation shifting to an industrial one, and the monarchies going by the side of the road, creating, some might say, dictatorships that were the replacement for the casually accepted monarchies of the royalty. So, to safeguard the checks and balances of the three departments, they said that the members of each department should be as little dependent as possible on those of the others for the emoluments annexed to their office. Clause 9 of the Constitution says, "There is no question that the president is a person who is holding an office of profit or trust within the contemplation of the emoluments clause." Now, article, and forgive me for identifying it, but if you want to look it back and play it back and forth, it's easier if I give more information. And there's a lot more information. And years ago, I wrote during Trump's first term in office these very thoughts. And everybody scratches their head. They don't know what is an emolument. They were afraid they would have primaries. All sorts of reasons. But Article 2, Section 1, Clause 7 of the United States Constitution provides that the president shall at stated times receive for his services a compensation which shall neither be increased nor diminished during the period for which he shall have been elected, and he shall not receive within that period any other emolument from the United States or any of them. Now, the district court, in a case Griffin against the United States, Griffin was the Attorney General, the 1995, explained that this provision was to protect the independence of the president from manipulation by Congress, as the other emolument provisions seek to protect the independence of the president from manipulation by his foreign holdings. So in other words, it's a two-way street. Congress is not supposed to be able to compromise him financially. He's not supposed to get anything except his salary while he's in office. And everything is supposed to be out of his hands, which it hasn't happened. So you may say this is all very interesting, and I believe it, and it's true, and what are we going to do about it? There are two parts to this answer. First of all, this is just one example of the tools we have that the founders thought was critical that we would use against corrupt leadership. And we haven't used the many tools, not effectively, not truthfully, not to their purpose. And extraneous things like Mel Brooks might say, is the members of our Congress has been too busy protecting and defending their phony baloney jobs, because they are phony baloney jobs if they don't do anything with them. What is the value of having these public officials if in times of crisis they don't do the hardest part of the job, which is put themselves on the line? This is not an employment question. We're not talking about the labor returns the first Friday of every month. We're talking about how does this government succeed, preserve and protect itself as a republic, and allow us to continue to vote and allow us to be equal, to have equal justice before law. So that's the first problem. Nobody's doing anything. And we, the people, are the only ones who may. And we have to celebrate the fact that those citizens and groups and others that go to court, they are saving our republic now. And then there are some members of the Congress who are going around the country informing people without regard to party or current persuasion that this is going on. And it should be becoming more apparent. The question is, are we weak? Does our democracy, does our vote, does our voice mean anything? And I think it does. So what does that translate into if I say to Congress what you should do? What it translates into is impeachment on this and other things. And there are several members who are talking about it, but they're Democrats. And it's a numbers game. So if Republicans don't cross the line to support with Democrats the crimes against our nation by the incumbent president, then what are we doing? There's no reckoning. It's been the problem from the beginning to the end. You get more protection in this administration if you're a felon. Isn't it scandalous that a woman who died trying to assault the Capitol, and there was a whole crowd at a door, and she was trying to break through, and I think very reluctantly the officer shot her, and it turned out she died. And so now there are headlines about how much money this Department of Justice under Bondi is going to give to that family. Okay, wrong. We shouldn't be doing that, or we should fight it to the end. It was justified. And a lot more could have been justified. And as a result of those who were guarding our Capitol, they were put at risk for not doing more than they might have done until they couldn't possibly. And we've seen how they were beaten and just terribly assaulted by these crowds. And we're going to forget that? And the then president, sat, who knows, eating something probably, and watching this go on and doing nothing to lift a finger to lighten the load. So this is the latest significant, knowable misconduct by the administration. The New York Times will get 100 awards for this story. And it will be wasted if we don't use the information to actually cause reform and change up to and including impeachment. So that's what I have to say. And tomorrow, maybe I'll be out if it's not raining. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.